I mentioned earlier that we have to tell XNAT how to anonymize incoming image data. We use a scripting language called DicomEdit in order to do this. This language was developed by Kevin Archie and then now by Dave Moffett here in our lab, and I'm leaning heavily on their documentation in order to give you this lecture. In the practical exercises for this unit, we're going to use DicomEdit to create some of our own DicomEdit scripts, some of our own anon scripts, and perform some anonymization functions. So briefly, let's review what DicomEdit can do with an eye on the major tasks of de-identification and anonymization. First, let's take a look at an example anon script, which is in use in one of the major prospective data collections here in C&DA. DicomEdit scripts function as a series of instructions with one instruction on each line of your script file. For any given DICOM field, you have to determine whether to retain the data, remove the data to anonymize it, or recode the data to de-identify it. You can see this script is quite extensive in terms of the number of fields that are identified that need anonymization or de-identification. And if we scroll down, there's a large number of fields here or a large number of instructions here where we are preserving key values from GE formatted private tags while removing everything else out of that block. So let's decode some of these instructions real quickly. At its most basic, you can tell DicomEdit to zero out the value of a given tag, like we're going to do with the patient birth date. In this case, there's just no tag, no value. Or you can assign a new value to a tag. So we could, if we had a patient's full name in there, we could kind of in a dumb way manually assign it to a new subject value. This isn't really a good practice unless you wanted to hard code the same subject ID for every single incoming session. You obviously don't want to do that. So instead, what we can do is use the DICOM object identifier to read the value of a comments field or some other variable that gets defined, and we can say, here's this variable called subject. Let's use that the value of that variable to assign a new incoming value for the DICOM tag that you want to edit. And while you're assigning new values, you can, instead of doing them with just a string or a new value, you can use a hashing algorithm in the case of a UID to create a new UID that is hashed but in a recoverable way. So if you needed to, you could unhash this UID if you needed to provide some data back to the original study in the PACS. You can also do a conditional assignment, which is based on some kind of check. So in this case, we're using a regex pattern to say, does this tag have something that looks like a UID in it? Some combination of numbers and decimal points. And if so, let's go ahead and hash that ID. So if it finds the tag, it's going to go ahead and hash it. There are several other advanced features in DicomEdit scripts that can be performed, including operations on ranges of DICOM tags and sequences. These are noted in the documentation, and we'll be using a few of these operations in our practical exercise.